Welcome to the FMCG Guys, the podcast that dives into the innovation, strategy, and trends shaping consumer goods and retail in Europe and beyond.
Welcome to the FMCG Guys podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Torres. We are recording today on the 1st of September, which marks the general return to our beloved working routines. If this is the first time you tune into the podcast, you'll want to know that this is as far as I know, most followed podcast in consumer goods and retail in Europe, with 25,000 followers on LinkedIn. As in, I think a couple of weeks ago, we reached that number. If you are a regular listener of the podcast, you probably already know that one of our favorite topics is marketing. We think that it hasn't been ever a better and in some ways worse moment to be a marketer in our industry than now. Now that brands are a bit having a Q of Aidis type of moment and looking to find relevance with consumers, we think that this is a key functions for the future of FMCG and probably what will separate brands doing well and brands not doing so well. So as you know, we've spoken with several brand leaders in the past months. By the way, you can find all our old episodes on your favorite podcast player, or better, even on our website, fmcgguys.com. And if you search the word marketing, you'll find them. So we've interviewed a lot of people lately. And today is not an exception, but it has a caveat. Our guest is Pepsico Sorin Patilinet, and the caveat is that he's actually just written a book about marketing effectiveness, and constant is that he's an FMCG leader. So welcome, Sorin. How are you doing?
Thank you, Daniel, for having me. It's a big honor to be on your pod. I went through the list of previous guests that you had, and it's honestly impressive. So I'm more than honored to spend some time with you and provide value to your listeners.
Yeah. It's taken some time. We've been doing it, believe it or not, for 5 years. But I think once you get the ball rolling, and you've had some good leaders, it's easier to get other ones on board, and you also have the practice on how to convince them to join this big family of FMCG.
It was easy. I think we spoke 3 days ago, and we're recording like 3 days before we actually met and online.
I wish it were always this way, but it's not. So Sorin, for the audience to know you a little bit, first of all, I wanted to ask you, because I know that you've joined PepsiCo recently. What are you doing there?
So my name is Sorin Patilinet, if I could start my intro that way. I'm born in Romania, but have been living in Belgium. I have been calling Brussels home for a while now, 15 years. I'm an engineer at my background, but I've only worked in marketing for 20 years at major consumer goods companies like British American Tobacco, Mars, largest part of my career. And recently, more than 3 or 4 months ago, I joined PepsiCo in a marketing effectiveness global role. With a clear guideline to improve how we measure the impact of our activities when it comes to marketing and how we future-proof our capabilities for the future.
Fantastic. I have to ask you, you studied engineering back in the day. How did you end up being a marketer?
It's a very funny story. So I grew up in Romania during communist times, and I was not able to have any access to any global brands because there were no global brands under the communist regime. Mm-hmm. However, when the communist regime fell, there was a huge desire to learn and to understand what the world is actually consuming. So there was an explosion of availability of brands. And about at the same time, I was quite young. There was an event called the Night of Ad Eaters. And the concept was very simple. You go into the cinema at 7 p.m. and you start watching ads until the morning. Ads from all over the world, extremely funny, extremely culturally relevant. And that was for me, I think that was the window to understand the world. Through the world of brands and through the world of creativity, because those ads were selected to be really like mini movies. And I think that's how I fell in love with brands, and that's how I fell in love with marketing. But because I knew as a student that was good in math and quite introverted, I thought that marketing is not for me, and that's where I went to study telecommunication engineering to build mobile phone networks, because I thought that's the future. It sort of is.
You were not wrong with that.
But it was not my future. So I mean, I took from those studies, I took the analytical thinking, the structure, the systematic approach to problem solving. But I wanted to apply that to something that's cooler, more colorful, and more diverse, I would say. And I think the world of brands and the brands I've gotten to touch over the last 20 years have offered me that platform.
Yeah, people may be asking themselves, what did you? Well, at least I'm asking myself, what did you like that much about watching ads for 12 hours or something like that?
Yeah, it's. I think if you grow up in a culture where you turn on your TV, I don't know, in the 80s, let's say, and you see ads that are explaining how different brands work, probably you would not go into a cinema theater. But if the quality of any kind of marketing or business promotions was so poor that you had no clue that Coca-Cola exists, or that because you only had Pepsi Cola, I remember back then in Romania, you don't know what M&M's is, you don't know what Perrier is. Those brands have extremely good communication platforms that are expressed in different ways around the world, from Indonesia to Brazil to the US. And through those ads, you learn a lot about the culture. I think you learn how people perceive their reality.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think it's hard to explain. I think people in Eastern Europe would probably understand it better. But I would not want you to go back in time and navigate that world.
There's certain countries, not many of them, that still you could be able to see that type of reality still today, right?
Yes, less so, because I think the internet has allowed a sort of like a level setting of the field. Access to information was never it's hard to be restricted, except in very few countries. But yeah, I think it's I didn't know it at that time, but I think it's the reason why I fell in love with business and marketing.
Yeah, and then when you started working in marketing, like how was it like? Because sometimes, you know how it is, like marketing, a lot of people would think it's just like doing ads, like quote unquote the sexy part of marketing.
Yeah.
How was it to actually be a practitioner?
Well, first of all, it was not easy to start in marketing because back at that time, no one would hire an engineer as a junior in a business role. I mean, they were basically telling me, no, this is not for you. You needed to choose something else. And that's how I ended up in a leadership trainee program that was a bit more open, and they rotated me through different functions, not just marketing, also sales, field force sales, key account management, and marketing research, and then finally into marketing. And because I was exposed to how a company works from multiple facets, I didn't start with the idea that marketing is like a showman kind of profession. I think we are often caricaturized by our sales colleagues as being like the magicians or the clowns or the I don't know, colorfully dressed and loud on stages kind of colleagues. I think that's an idea that's not true anymore. I think the availability of data has made the data-driven marketeer much more valuable to the business than any kind of 100% creative, don't care about consumer, just about creativity kind of profile. And I think that was a key influencing idea that stayed with me throughout my career, but also it was a key idea that I used to start writing the book that I finished and I've launched last week, actually, on marketing effectiveness. And the concept of that book is that I believe that marketing is much more than a creative game. That marketing is to be seen through an even scientific lens, an analytical lens, and that data available today allows you to make those choices if you are very clear on the principles that you're using, and those need to be robust, and if you take a holistic approach to marketing, not just advertising.
Congratulations, by the way, on the launch of the book. We will obviously leave some links on the show notes if anyone wants to learn more about it. It's available to buy online, I imagine.
Absolutely. It's available, even though I was pleasantly surprised last week that it was sold out on Amazon.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, we had a very strong push on LinkedIn last week. A lot of contributors to the book spoke out about it. You probably heard from a friend of mine about the book last week, and that's why we're recording this. So the result was that I think the order that Amazon put with the publisher was sold out quite fast. Now I think we're back in stock. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a nice ride.
Maybe you'll have to write another book about how you sold out in a week. how you manage that. When did you start thinking of ever even writing a book?
So I started thinking about writing a book probably 2 to 3 years ago, when I had an aha moment. I think I was on LinkedIn, or I was at an event or something like that. I don't remember precisely, but I realized that most of the conversations in marketing are led by several groups of people. One, academics like Mark Ritson, Byron Sharp, so people that are teaching marketing and they have a point of view, but very much a academic or research point of view. Then you have the agencies. People like Les Binet used to come from DDB. They have amazing publications in marketing, but they do look at it from the perspective of an agency,
which is actually more like that part, more like the front end part, no, more like the flashy part in some way.
Exactly. So it's a little bit biased towards communication, I would say. And then you also have a lot of very loud voices in different companies that are offering a service that helps marketers make better decisions. I can think of Kantar, System One, in general, people that want to sell a solution to support your marketing effectiveness best practices. And inside all this kind of conversation, there's no real voice of the advertiser. The voice of the practitioner is missing because we don't have anything to sell. We don't sell consultancy. We don't sell research solutions, and we don't want the next client as an agency. So I'm exaggerating here, but there's very little incentive for a brand to speak up out there. I saw it as an opportunity because I've been very active in speaking on different stages, and this was a natural flow from the blog I started 5 years ago and my continuous presence on various stages. I'm not dismissing the work of those that stood before me. I'm highlighting that work a lot in the book, and I'm using their work almost on a daily basis. But I just feel that if you're behind the trenches, you have some perspectives that are unique. You have the fight with the other departments in the organization. You have the budget pressures that you're constantly faced and that change from month to month, which are are less so perceived when you're just looking at a problem from a scientific point of view or from a solution point of view. So I've tried to bring those kind of insights into this practical book.
And why did you decide to focus on marketing effectiveness? Like, instead of like saying, marketing from inside or ads or data market, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So marketing effectiveness is a topic that I think it has a certain resonance in the industry nowadays. The World Federation of Advertisers, which is an association of the leading brands advertising in the world, they got together, I think, 50 years ago. And at that time, they've set their priorities. What do advertisers care about? Let's say that was the survey. And number one was marketing effectiveness. I think they've run that survey every year since then, and marketing effectiveness always ranks in the top. Because what is marketing effectiveness is the link between what you do in marketing and the results that the business makes. So irrespective of where you are in the organization, you care about achieving those results through marketing activities, through sales activities, through other kind of activities. But in recent years, I've seen that the push to prove the impact, the ROI, the sales impact, the share price impact of your activities has been higher than ever, and there's no clear solution. There's no like magic bullet that everybody uses and that's it. I think some people think of marketing effectiveness as, this is the ROI, but ROI is just one facet of that element. There's much more. There's a lot about storytelling, internal discussions between departments, and how you present, for example, to your CEO. So that's why I decided to call it marketing effectiveness. It's a holistic view on, let's say, data-driven marketing research, which looks at strategy, pricing, product distribution, media, and creative. It elevates the conversations from just a simple advertising conversation to a holistic conversation about the impact.
Yeah, and not just and also not only like an academic point of view, but also from someone that's seen it happen. No.
Yeah, repeatedly. So I think I think academics are amazing at finding the best-in-class method to get to a certain conclusion. I think what academics lack is the repeatability of that research. No one repeats academic research because you can't republish that same work. In a brand will always try to replicate existing insights and existing things that have driven impact on the business, because that's how you save money and that's how you increase the impact.
Is there even like, when you talk about marketing effectiveness, you mentioned like, link between what you do and results. Is there even like a consensus on like the key KPIs around that?
Depending on which element of the marketing plan you're talking about, there is more or less consensus. I think there is a clear consensus, for example, that most of the elements of your marketing plan should generate a return on investment. And that's probably the first layer that everyone is looking at. Now, does media, for example, need to drive profit, or does media need to drive just top line sales? That's still a debate. In the same space in pricing, what is pricing effectiveness is very different depending on where you are in the type of organization that you are. I mean, a direct to consumer company that would have pricing, the pricing lever would be easier to manipulate or to activate, would have a different KPI or a different metric than a company that has a longer term purchase cycle and where pricing is not even within its control, like if like in the FMCG space, for example.
Yeah. So in the book, you've broken it down like in marketing strategy, product and pricing, media, creative. Like, for example, when you talk about marketing strategy, what are your thoughts around effectiveness there in terms of like how it's approached and how you think personally it should be approached?
So what I'm doing is that I'm breaking down each element of the marketing plan into how you should think about, for example, marketing strategy and how you should measure marketing strategy. And to me, marketing strategy is just about that work that happens at the beginning of your plan, where you need to decide what is the orientation that you will make as a brand or as a product. Is that a market orientation where you're focused on the market needs? Is that a product orientation where you're best building the best product that you can, assuming that the market will follow? It could be a pricing orientation. It could be, I think, the known literature explains that in a very broad scale. Now, the principles that I apply here around orientation, around the strategy and positioning, is about embracing A/B testing, embracing the ability to create a certain version of that strategy, and to replicate it with some changes in the execution, so that you understand that the difference in the outcome, in the effectiveness, is driven by the difference in the strategy. I think to be honest with you, measuring the effectiveness of the strategy is the hardest part of the entire book. I think there are clearer ways in which you can measure pricing, product, media, because there is research on that. Strategy comes very early in the process and is often impacted by the execution that comes afterwards. Mm-hmm. But the point I'm really wanting to make is that too often we miss talking about the strategy, we miss making those decisions about the strategy, and we go straight into which channel am I going to use? Am I going to use a stories, or am I going to use TikTok, without even thinking about the real elements of the strategy? So that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, in your experience, how have you balanced the two? Because I get, as a marketer, I guess that you want to activate things, but also you need to be like, do that intellectual exercise of like, what do I want to stand for as a brand? And I think that the whole industry is a bit in the middle of this debate, no?
So I think, it depends a lot. I think it depends by the type of company, brand, your location in that company. How much strategy can you make? We would love to. I think we overuse the word strategy when we talk about tactics and executions. We talk about communication strategy. That's not strategy. That's just selecting how you're going to get your message out to your consumer. And that's because, for example, if you have a brand like Lay's, which is the largest global brand of chips or crisps, you don't have too many people that are actually doing the brand strategy. There is a global leader that has a team and working together with an agency that the CMO of Lay's is actually the person that drives the strategy and decides what should be the orientation, what should be the positioning of the brand. 90% of the marketeers that work on Lay's are in the execution market, and they are just applying that strategy through tactical activation. But that differs a lot if, for example, you are working on a smaller local brand, for example. Even larger consumer packaged goods or FMCG companies have these kind of local jewels where there's no global team and you are in charge as a local leader. You're in charge of both the strategy, but also the execution. And I think in those kind of situations, you should not spend too much time on your strategy, but you should not ignore it. I think strategy is often happening once per year, and then it's set. You don't go back. You don't change your audiences. You don't change the targeting. You don't change the position of your brand. You're just fixing your execution and tactics throughout the year. And that's how you can approach the balance between strategy and execution.
So, and do you think that when doing the strategy, it's important to look at a lot of data?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that my entire approach is that today we are lucky to live in an age where data is omnipresent around us. And the biggest challenge is not whether we should look or not at data. The biggest challenge we have is to assess the quality and the relevance of the data. I mean, one of the key elements again, if we stay in marketing strategy, one of the key elements is to define the category where you're playing. Is Lay's playing against other chips brands, or is Lay's playing against M&M's? Because as a consumer, when you go into a store, you want something
a snack.
Those are the kind of conversations that you and your team should have in the strategy phase. What's my category? How do I define it? Am I defining it broad enough, or am I going too narrow? Because that influences everything that you do going afterwards. It influences how you calculate market share, how you understand the headwinds and the tailwinds of the categories. It influences your product pipeline potentially. So that you can only do through good understanding of your category and the data that comes to play that. So get strong data and ensure that you understand better the category would be my first things that inform your strategy.
And then is there like you mentioned that's more like a once a year exercise, and then it comes like the time of execution. How do you like go back to the strategy to execute?
I think the strategy for most of the brands I worked, strategy informed plans, and that usually is a process that happens regularly once a year. To be fair, with most global brands, you don't even revisit the strategy of the brand every year. I mean, the strategy is set in stone, and you're just doing a yearly planning cycle of whatever element of the brand that you need to activate during that particular year. And strategy should inform the tactics, which should inform the execution, and that's the path. But you can't miss any of the steps. So if your strategy is to grow penetration among 18 to 30-year-olds, your tactic is to maybe be present where there is a increased purchase opportunity for that demographic group, let's say, and your execution is, could be sampling in store, could be targeted communication to that group. It could be various ways, but the strategy is to grow penetration against that target audience, and that one you don't really change it. What you change is, do I do more sampling, or do I do more media? Do I do more consumer promo, or am I present in a campus, or physical availability is closer to where those groups are playing? So that's how I would look at it.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of media, you have a chapter on media. I'm curious to know, like, what do you talk about in that part of the book?
So media has been my main area of activity over the last 14 years. I've built solutions that helped marketeers, senior marketeers, to make better decisions when it comes to media choices. And in that part of the book, I'm explaining in simple terms how media works today, how the programmatic space works, and what are the elements you should be aware when when you're faced with various decisions. I'm talking about the difference between media effectiveness and media efficiency. I'm talking about new ways of adding an element of quality that informs your channel choices, and it could be attention, it could be other metrics that get closer to the consumer. So, in a sense, I would say that none of the specific chapters will be extremely groundbreaking for the practitioners in that field. So, for example, the media chapter will be a nice reminder for the media directors, but they will learn much more from the product chapter or from the creative chapter. But the same way, I mean, if you're not working with media day in, day out, the media chapter will be a great introduction to actually what a media director works and plays with every day.
Is that the mission that you have thought of the book, that it's like a place where more than like practitioners can go to remind themselves of the basics and like kind of, I don't know how to say it, like go back to the originals and say, okay, yeah, that's true. That, you know what I mean? Like a place where they can go back to like kind of brainstorm and so on. Is that like one of the purposes?
Maybe, maybe. I think we are bombarded with information. I think we all use AI and ChatGPT on a day-to-day basis. You can access any information you want in the world. There's no secret anymore. I mean, you could ask ChatGPT to write the media chapter if you want, and it will write you a very boring vanilla way of looking at that.
Right.
I wrote the book with the idea that it should be some sort of like mini encyclopedia of practicalities, of things I learned and I wish I knew when I was, I don't know, 20 years younger. But I'm also recognizing at the same time that my background and your background are very different. So what I will find interesting in chapter 7, for you, it will be like, I knew that, I learned that in university. But because it's not narrowed down to a specific age group and specific, I don't know, let's say media director. I'm not writing for media directors. I'm writing for the entire marketing population. Everybody will find something interesting, and usually that thing will be bite-sized and short, and there will be a case study, there will be a practical point of view. Because I also have this idea that we spend less and less time with books. We just open the book, maybe we read this small page and that's it. So I envision that my book will be something like that. It will be, you dip your toes into it from time to time, and it's easily searchable and it's easily referenceable.
Well, I just read today that Gen Z is reading more than millennials. I don't know if they maybe it's just here in Catalonia. I don't know, but at least here it's happening.
I was in Barcelona. I was in Barcelona in July this year, and it's true that in public transport I've seen so many people reading books. So maybe there is a revolution of books now. Do they read non-fiction books about marketing, or they read fiction books? That's another conversation. But
yeah. And you talked about artificial intelligence. Well, let me ask you, how are you using artificial intelligence, both at work and even in your personal life? Do you use ChatGPT much?
Absolutely, I use it every day. And for example, this morning my washing machine gave a weird error, and I took a picture, gave it to ChatGPT, and I got my answer within seconds. So it reduces my anxiety level significantly, because it can make me answer questions that I have no clue how to. I mean, I could go to the manual, I could search the manual, but yeah, so I use it a lot. I use it to explain in simple terms things that I don't understand yet, even in the field of marketing, and I think it changes our behaviors significantly. In positives and in negative ways. I mean, we get access to more information, but we are probably more lonely because it has happened to me that instead of calling like an expert or a friend that knows that topic very well, I just typed the question on ChatGPT and I got some sort of answer. I'm afraid of that future. I'm afraid in a future in which we stop talking to each other and we are simply asking ChatGPT everything we need to know. But overall, I think that the growth of large language models has been a great source of improving our work life. I mean, I haven't received any bad emails in the last year or so. I don't know about you, but I mean, everybody seems to be writing extremely eloquent and using fantastic words. But I think it raised the floor a little bit. Now, if you would ask me what I think about the future, again, I think everybody will have access to all the information they will need to make decisions. And I think the real winners will be the ones who will know how to use that information and how to influence their ideas into large organizations. Just because you know how to measure effectiveness doesn't mean anything if you're not able to convince your CFO that that's how you should measure effectiveness. And at the end of the day, those conversations in large FMCG organizations are human to human, and so far, I have not found ChatGPT very good at finding ways to basically negotiate concepts inside large organizations.
How because you mentioned that part of like presenting things. How are marketing leaders like CMOs or brand directors, depending on the context, proving that the actions they're taking are being effective? Like, what is like, yeah. How does that proof of marketing effectiveness, that governance in some degree, how does that work?
I think it's a lot of art and science. I think if you think of it coldly, you would say that all decisions are based on science, and everybody uses facts, and those facts are like what makes the call. Depending on the leader, depending on the company, depending on the position, there is a mix of art and science in those decisions. And it's not 90-10. It's not 90 science, 10 art. I mean, how you present that information, even how it looks, how you sell that information through the corridors, let's say before the meeting, and how you bring your allies together. I mean, this is all part of the leadership handbook, but I don't have it very well crystallized in my mind, but I think it's the most important thing that you will need to learn going forward. It's not really how you run a marketing effectiveness research. It's how you implement that marketing effectiveness research into your organization that will be critical for you to know, like how you adapt it, how you simplify the message, how you create a culture of constant learning. And I think there's no single way of doing it. And that's why I think if I would advise an organization, I would really, really understand their culture, really understand how they make decisions, who are the power leaders, and then start from there to build slowly narratives that work, narratives that support the right internal behaviors. Because even if your outcome is the same, you have an increase in share price, you have a dividend growth, you have you're selling more of your brand. The difference between people wanting to work for that leader or for that part of the organization and not wanting to work will actually make the difference a lot.
Do you think from a critical eye and having worked with a lot of marketing leaders, do you think there's a lack of that link between like your results, finding your results, interpreting them, and then learning from them, or do you think they were in the right?
I would not generalize. What I would generalize is I've seen that we tend, and not maybe it's not just marketing. We tend to always find the narrative that suits our message and our what we want to send. I mean, maybe we learned that from our partners, from the agencies, but it's very hard to be called hard fact based in marketing, and I'm trying to nudge my colleagues, and I'm trying to nudge through this book people to be a little bit more cold in the decision making and less emotional, because I still find that in decision making in marketing and also beyond, there's a lot of emotions. Let's not go into sales, because that's a completely a different kind of beast there. But yeah.
And do you think that like there's emerging technologies which will make this measurement more objective?
I think the measurement will be objective. I think also, I mean, I'm seeing more and more implementations of large language models in decision making. You have a lot of companies that are enabling their employees to basically query data through large language model like interfaces, which reduces a little bit the emotion, I would say. So I think democratizing data and access to data in an organization will make it a bit more real and cold. Now, will a CMO go into a SaaS platform to get his latest data, or will he write a PowerPoint deck for the CFO? I think it's the latter. And then what he or she chooses to put in that deck, it's absolutely up to his or her call.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, I'm not in a path to change how decisions are made in the organization. It's just nudging a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you think, like, you as a marketing leader, when you hire marketers, what do you look for? Do you think it's like similar to when you started marketing? Has it changed?
I think, I mean, I don't even remember what it was, what they looked, but I've always hired for the same traits. I've always hired for curiosity, and I've hired for desire to learn, which is probably curiosity as well in a different word. But and especially going forward, I think you will not, I mean, a degree would not mean the same as it did a long time ago, because you could easily upskill yourself in any kind of topic as long as you are curious, as long as you are able to use technology, and as long as you are flexible in your thinking. So curiosity would be number one. What I would look for, and I probably would have not done that 20 years ago, is critical thinking. I think the more we embed technology, the more we need to ask ourselves, is this true? And why is it true? And we did, I mean, 20 years ago, we didn't need to ask that question that often. Now with hallucinations and like weird data everywhere, you always need to ask, is this true? And why is it true? And can you repeat it? And so on. So curiosity, critical thinking, and why not charisma? I think being on the same wavelength with your colleagues, it's a great thing. But don't over exaggerate it, because you don't want mini-me's and similar characters in your team.
Yeah, and that goes a bit in sync or unsync with that type of leader that you're with. No, I think that if you're with a good leader, they normally empower you to be yourself and to develop that part of yourself. If you have a leader that wants you to be like them or cut to the same mold as everyone else in the team, that's probably a watch out sign, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And we have this question, by the way, here on the podcast that we ask all our guests, which is, if you went to yourself at the beginning of your career, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
I think the piece of advice I would give my younger self is exactly what I think I did, was to get as many different experiences in real life as possible. And I think that's even more important going forward with the advent of technology. I think your CV will be based on who you know and what you did physically, and not if I learned this to program this computer, or if I know that language and so on. I think what you did physical in real life is what mattered. And for example, I early on in my career, I chose to move to another country and to several other countries instead of going up on the path to becoming like a senior brand manager in my same country. So I moved from Romania to the UK, to London. I moved to Amsterdam and then to Brussels. And I stayed at the same level, but I gained a lot more by exposing myself to new cultures, new set of friends, new set of colleagues, and learning about different aspects of the same business.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's kind of a common thread as well through people that have done well in their career, that they've gone more for the learnings than like for the immediate promotion. So
or the financial. I think, I mean, if you're curious and you're saying a lot of yeses, your career will solve for that, or traditionally would have solved for that. Now, did I go all the way? Maybe not. I mean, I didn't leave Europe. I didn't go to like an emerging market, or I'm sure others have done more dramatic changes in their career, and probably there the uplift is even higher in their learning ability.
Yeah, I mean, as I always say, I think that there needs to be a balance, between like what's good for your career and how you balance it with your personal life.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, if you do go a bit further and you do take that element of risk, and it works well, you kind of future-proof yourself. No? So,
yeah.
So Sorin, I had a lot of fun with this. I am now keen to read the book to learn a bit more about like your different experiences. I'll do a bit of takeaways from our conversation. Very interesting that you grew up where you grew up in a particular moment in time, in which there was like a big change of regime from a communist regime to a capitalist regime, and the fact that you went to the night of ad eaters, watching ads from all over the world for what, 10, 12 hours or something like that. Was that a once a year thing, or?
Yeah, it was a once a year event. Yeah, but it was a huge event. You had like at times it was happening in larger venues than cinemas. So it was quite a popular event. And I later found out that all agencies were there. It was like a marketing conference of the year somehow.
You didn't even know.
No, I was in high school, so.
Yeah, exactly. And you talked about like how you studied engineering, but started in a leadership trainee program, but then became interested in marketing, which maybe you were not expecting. And yeah, from having a career across different multinationals around the world to reading a book, to writing a book, sorry, which by the way has already sold out in the first week, which is great, and congratulations on that. But it's now available again. We're leaving the link in the show notes.
Absolutely.
And why marketing effectiveness? It's a topic that has a resonance in the industry, and when advertisers / basically brands are asked what they care about, marketing effectiveness is always number one. We've talked about like it's a link between what you do in marketing and the results. And yeah, we talked about like having a holistic view on marketing, like data-driven marketing, and then how you execute that from strategy, product distribution, media. We talked about KPIs, which are a dynamic part. That's why I think I want to read more about the book, because I think it's very interesting to hear that approach on like dynamic KPIs, why it depends on like also the structure of the company. I am keen to read more about media, which, as you mentioned, has been your main area of activity. And you already talked about how media works, programmatic. I mean, we didn't even talk about like retail media, for example, which I think has been a big catalyst for change, also links about data and so on. We talked about AI. I liked how you called it useful, very useful now, but afraid of the future. And of course, talking out in all about the mix of art and science that I think businesses and marketing specifically is as well. So, Sorin, thanks a lot for joining again.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me.
Thanks to our audience as well for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode of the FMCG Guys. Have a great one.
The content in this podcast episode is provided for general informational purposes only. By listening to our episode, you understand that no information contained in this episode should be construed as advice from Dwyer Partners SL, doing business as the FMCG Guys, or the individual author, host, or guests, nor is it intended to be a substitute for research on any subject matter. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Dwyer Partners SL. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Dwyer Partners SL expressly disclaims any and all liability or responsibility for any direct, indirect, incidental, special, consequential, or other damages arising out of any individual's use of, reference to, or inability to use this podcast or the information we presented in this podcast.